Our next presenter is going to be June Sokolowski. She's the Director of Scientific Special Projects, and she's going to speak about purchasing and contracts. And she has so much information and knowledge that she's definitely the person to go to if you're even thinking about buying equipment. And I will let her speak now because she can tell you better than I can.
Good morning and welcome on how to purchase your scientific needs. Again, thank you, Karen, for introducing me and inviting me. My name again is June Sokolowski, and I am the director of the scientific procurement team. The team also includes Ryan Lysars, Nina Johnson, Stefan Cote, Walter Pryor, and Shauna Soberin. We have over 30 plus years of procurement experience and over 60 plus years of research experience. So our aim really is to strive to provide the highest level of customer service and successful outcomes in procuring your scientific equipment, services, supplies, and consumables to support your needs, the faculty, staff, and students that are engaged in research and clinical activities and economic development initiatives. So currently on campus, there are over 1,800 federal research proposals with an estimated $440 million in all R&D expenditures. With the ever-growing increase in faculty, how will we ever achieve these research strategic priorities? Really by engaging in stronger supportive partnerships with the researchers, the Office of VP Research and Economic Development, our sponsored project services, our UBOs, and our vendors. Having open and positive communication really only reinforces better outcomes for all. The complex nature of what we buy, from specialized lab equipment to consumables and supply, a one-size-fits-all strategy is really not a conducive procurement model. So a customer-centric approach is necessary for our end users. We can meet and work collectively with a PI to understand your needs and build upon a strong collaborative relationship and ensure a more positive outcome. So a specialized equipment initiative, along with our Empire State Development initiatives, helps UB to advance state-of-the-art research facilities and communities of excellence. Having these initiatives and procurement plans will really promote faculty collaboration and strengthen our innovative thinking, industry, and community involvement. So by providing the professional and value-added service and strategizing through cost reductions, mitigating risk, and supplier optimization really only reinforces our better outcomes for you on the campus. So the scientific team procures all scientific commodities. That is from capital equipment or specialized scientific systems and basic equipment, consumables, analysis, maintenance agreements and repairs, or MRO. Both of these really go hand in hand and ultimately provides complete support to our scientific end users. However, the method of procurement is inherently different. Some basic questions that the departments really should be addressing before initiating a requisition include what type of funding source will be used, State Research Foundation or UB Foundation? Have you performed your due diligence and obtained quotes? Have you provided your departmental justification, whether it's a sole or single source? Really, a single source is when there are two or more suppliers that really can provide a good or service. A sole source is when there is really only one supplier that can provide a good or service. These types are pretty rare. And for an example, when we're purchasing MRIs on campus, we have multiple suppliers such as Philips Healthcare, Siemens, Canon, or Olympus. Your justification really should highlight what other models that you have looked at and that do not meet your requirements. Some of the technical specs may include why the spectral range or the laser strength is not compatible to your research needs. So how do we strategically source basic equipment, consumables, and MRO? These involve high volume, low dollar purchases. On a typical day, we get a minimum of 80 to 100 requests. Basic equipment, it will include your balances, your pH meters, your pipetters, and your benchtop centrifuge. Your consumables will include your daily use items, such as your chemicals, your tips, and your gloves. And your MRO, your maintenance, repairs, and operations, really will include your service agreements and your small repairs. So through our New York State OGS contracts, and utilization of the ShopBlue platform. And this is where punch outs and catalog items on New York State contract can be found. Some of these may include Fisher Scientific, Crackler, and laboratory product sales. We also utilize system-wide SUNY contracts, which may include VWR, and also preferred sources, which are include New York State Industries for the Blind and minority and women-owned businesses and service-disabled veteran-owned businesses. We also can deal with the open market, which is where a sole or single source can be utilized in obtaining 3 quotes. So a good option for a one-time purchase from a vendor that is not in ShopBlue and that does not accept purchase orders is use of the P card. The limits for using state fundings is $4,999. For RF and UBF funding, the limits are $2,500. For all funding sources, all must be reasonable in price, must be appropriate to the grant or account, and also they must be tax exempt. So UB's e-procurement system is the ShopBlue platform. This is really designed for a one-stop shopping experience where approvals, receivers, and payment can all be completed in a shared marketplace. Efficiency is maximized and automated order delivery, invoicing, and payment to suppliers. So for getting into the actual thresholds for requisitions that you will be processing, or that we will be processing, for requisitions under the $10,000 threshold, as far as state funding, reasonableness of price must be obtained and 2 quotes for comparable items are needed if over $2,500. For RF and UBF funding that is to be utilized, reasonableness price and 1 quote is necessary. These typically will take an estimated order time of 3 to 5 business days to process. Keep in mind, if a vendor is not in the supplier file, it may take up to 2 weeks. For requisitions that are under the $49,999 threshold, all funding sources have the same requirements. You must have price reasonableness, and you must obtain 2 or 3 quotes for comparable items. We will absolutely work with our end users and partner with you to help you find out and advise on what other vendors may be able to supply this. You may also need to have a sole or single source justification needed. So typically this will take an estimated 5 to 15 business days to process. So for strategic sourcing of capital equipment, these really involve high dollar specialized equipment purchases, MRI, centrifuges, engineering, robotics, genomic systems. The focus on these purchases is really over the $50,000 threshold. Requirements become a bit more complex, especially when you're dealing with state funds. The way we used to purchase 5 years ago and even 1 year ago is really no longer the case. The majority of this type of equipment is not on New York State contract. However, if equipment can be found on New York State contract, and a few of these are Agilent, Evident, Scientific, which used to be called Olympus, Life Technologies, Philips Healthcare, Shimatsu, Siemens, Thermo Electron, and Waters, or the SUNY-wide state contract for VWR and Medline. The process is really greatly simplified. We also have access to different types of consortia contracts. We have an educational cooperative called E&I, and also healthcare contracts through Premier. We also can deal with our MWBEs, which we have laboratory product sales and Cara Medical, to name a few. And also our SDVOBs are helpful. These still require pre-approval, though, keep that in mind. We also have the ability for the open market, which still requires our due diligence, approvals, discretionary, and possibly a formal invitation for bid. And these are really based on the dollar value. So at the $50,000 threshold, State-funded purchases must be advertised in the New York State Contract Reporter if these are not on New York State or SUNY contract. The advertisements typically may include a discretionary, a consortium, a healthcare, an MWBE or SDVOB, or a formal invitation for bid. So for the state, RF, and UBF funds still require at least the 3 quotes whenever possible. Keep in mind, estimated timeframes for state orders is approximately 1 to 2 months. For RF and UBF, 3 or more weeks' time. For the $75,000 threshold, major changes in requirements are happening for state funding purchases that are not on New York State or SUNY contract. Pre-approval is required by the Office of the State Controller and possibly the Attorney General's office, in addition to the New York State Contract Reporter advertisements. We still, though, have our discretionary authority up to the $125,000 threshold, but approval is not always guaranteed. New New York State legislation was recently passed that went into effect this past March of 2023, where OSC approval is necessary for discretionary purchases that fall in the range from $75,000 to $125,000. 3 quotes must be solicited, and approval is not guaranteed. So for the RF and UBF, same requirements are in place as previously explained. Please keep in mind, estimated processing times is 3 to 5 months for the state and 3 or more weeks for RF and UBF. So for thresholds at 125,000 or above, the main difference with this threshold is we no longer have the ability to use our discretionary authority. So the options that are available are New York State, SUNY contract, consortium, and healthcare contracts. Also the MWBE and SDVOB, which we have the ability to have our discretionary up to the $500,000 limit. If none of these of the above apply, we must go out for a formal competitive bid or IFB. Or we can go to OSC, the Office of the State Controller, and ask for a pre-approval on a sole or single source. I must emphasize that this is rarely granted. For OSC approval is required for New York State contracts over the $200,000 threshold. And also OSC and AG approval is required for all others. In addition to the New York State Contract Reporter ad, this may require a 4 to 6 month estimated time frame for RF and UBF. The same requirements are that were previously explained are in place. Time frame for processing is 3 to 5 weeks. I do also want to mention that when you are ordering capital equipment, please keep in mind that you should really be reaching out to your FPMO or your facilities managers. You need to really find out what exactly is necessary for your utilities that need to be put in place, your gas lines, your electrical lines, your water lines, or various. I know that facilities is really backed up, and it's a year in advance that you need to have that in place. Also, I just want to say here are some frequently used vendor contacts that we utilize: Bio-Rad Laboratories, Fisher Scientific, Crackler, Laboratory Product Sales, Life Technologies, and VWR. Please feel free to reach out to us at any time if there's a specialized piece of lab equipment. We do this all the time. We do a lot of international orders and importing of those goods. Those lead times will roughly run anywhere from 8 weeks to 18 months. So keep that in mind. Also, I'd like to include Business Service will be holding a UB Business Day to be held on October 24th of 2024. I highly recommend that you attend. These are presentations, are interactive, face-to-face, where you can meet with colleagues, speakers, and vendors. And there will be numerous topics that will involve how do you gain access to a P card? How do you use the Concur system? How to use ShopBlue. So I highly recommend. It is really a very informative experience. So again, thank you for having me, and please feel free to reach out anytime to procurement to address any of your needs. We will be more than happy. I know we have met with quite a few of the new recruits, so we'll come to your place or whatever is most suitable to fulfill your scientific needs and to hopefully for you to have a successful experience working with procurement and all the rest of our services. Thank you.
Thank you so much, June. That was very informative. And I guess my takeaway from that is definitely plan ahead because things are going to take a while.